From sunny Southern California, we bring you Meet Bridget, a podcast for building confident communication and female badassery. We spotlight women who have bridged the gaps in their lives by building strong relationships and speaking their teenage dreams into reality. Bring it on, baby!
That led one thing to another and me becoming an esthetician. And now when I look back, I wouldn't change a thing.
Bring it on, baby. Welcome back to Meet Bridget. This show sheds light on the often untold teenage and young adult stories of successful women from all types of backgrounds and in all sorts of careers. It is our belief and our mission that when we tell the stories of women back in their younger years, their lives, their lifestyles, their paths become accessible and relatable to young women everywhere. This show is an extension of our confidence coaching service for young women. And I'm Asha Gabriel. If we haven't met, hi, I co-host this show alongside my best friend and Meet Bridget COO, Kashia Rosenberg. This is crazy. It's season 5 of Meet Bridget, and we're so happy to be back. And today we're kicking off an interview with Ninka Baprawska. Did I say your last name right?
Yes, Baprawska. You got it, Asha.
Ninka and I have known each other for a long time, and I have been looking forward to this interview for so long because she has helped me for a very long time, and I'll share how. Ninka is the lead medical esthetician at Zio Skin Center here in Newport Beach, California, and she's also a beauty editorial contributor at Genlux magazine. She's a board-certified esthetician and has completed the Master Esthetician program at the Dermal Science International Academy in Virginia. She was born and raised in Poland, and she emigrated to the U.S. with her family. With her European background, she brings a different outlook on skin and healthcare from the U.S. standard of symptoms treatment, reactive treatment. In Europe, there's this amazing emphasis on health maintenance and prevention, and that also extends to proactive skincare as an approach. She is an excellent communicator and customizes treatment to each client's unique needs and goals. I've been seeing Ninka for facials ever since my skin was breaking out very suddenly just before my cancer diagnosis in 2018. It was really like a tender moment in my life. I was like shocked by the reactions in my skin, and Ninka was there for me. She really took a holistic look at my skin and really at me. So I'm so excited to share her knowledge and her kind, calming personality with our audience. So welcome, Ninka, to Meet Bridget.
Oh, thank you, Asha. You're such a sweet and kind soul yourself, and it's such an honor to be here with you.
Well, I don't know where to start because I feel like every time I go to a facial with you, not only are your hands like beautiful little feathers that know how to make everything right, you also, like, we have these amazing conversations. And so on the podcast, we like to go right back to your childhood years, where you grew up. Obviously, we mentioned you're from Poland. Can you take us back to as early as you can remember? What were you like as a little girl, and how did you grow up?
I think for me, I'm very proud of being Polish, and I love it's a little bit biased opinion because that's where I come from, but I absolutely love it. And it's such a rich culture. And growing up, I was born in the central part of Poland, and I was raised and lived there until the age of 10. So that's really what I knew. And since the age of 10, then things were changing. And that's when we moved to the States. And from that on till the age of 20, my life was divided between 2 countries. Wow. So the Poland and the States.
Did you have siblings and stuff growing up, or was it just you?
Well, it was just me at that time. I have a little brother who's 10 years younger than me, but for the most part, it was just me. And I had a very beautiful childhood. I was surrounded by my grandparents, who were my absolute angels. And I have great memories of of living in the city, but then being in the countryside of Poland and going to the forest and gathering berries, which are all available to everyone. So it was just a very unique and a combination of a lot of different factors in my life that made me appreciate a lot of different contrasts of life, and the city life and the country life and what it all entails.
I love that. I'm just thinking, imagining like going out to the countryside to gather berries. And it's definitely like clearly a very different life and lifestyle than we have here in the States. Like I'm sure there are other, most families that emigrate here, there are reasons why there are benefits that they're seeking in the States. But there are definitely differences in just like the way, especially how children are brought up. When you
Mhm.
were like in your school years, how was school for you? Were you really engaged, in school, academic, introverted, extroverted? What were you like when you were really little?
Well, I think I always enjoyed, my own company. So, and I enjoyed being with others as well. And I think when, I remember, from the age of 10 till, and between the age of 10 and 20, those very important formative years were, just being and living between Poland and the States. So a lot of changes with schools. So, two different countries, two different languages, two different traditions, two different ways of living. And I was an extension of my parents. So I went where they went. And I remember my mom, she told me this story that one year I graduated from a school in Poland and a school in the States. So it was a lot. It was a lot. So I think, with all of the changes that were happening around me, I really always turned within myself and always found a lot of, beautiful inspirations. And I think that's a way of learning about oneself.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
What were your parents like growing up? What were they doing? How like active were they in your life? And what were your like relationships like with your parents before 10 and then, after?
My both of my parents were very young when they had me, so they had to grow up very quickly and have the responsibilities of adult life. And so they were both focusing on their work and their lives, sustaining us. So at the same time, my grandparents were the ones who were stepped in and were very helpful for them. And but I think when I look back, I was always very independent and always rebellious in a way that I made bold decisions by myself and and they allowed me, they allowed me to live my own life. So they were there and they were very independent themselves, and I think that's why I'm very independent.
Yeah. Okay. So you're saying that they were younger. Were they like planning to have you at that time, or was it kind of more of an unexpected thing?
Not at all. They
Yeah.
were both in school.
Okay.
They were both in university,
Uh-huh.
and my mom was studying dance. She's a dancer, and my dad, they're both very artistic actually. And my dad was studying sculpture and,
Wow.
making beautiful sculpture out of metal and different, wood and stuff like that. So they both were young. They were, only around 20,
Okay.
and they were, they just fell in love, and that's how it happened.
So is your grandparents on both sides or on one side or the other that were like around and really present for you?
We lived closer to my mom's parents, so they were the ones who were really next door to us
Uh-huh.
and were very helpful. My grandparents from my dad's side, they lived in a different part of Poland, so I would see them, but our relationship wasn't it wasn't like a daily type of relationship with them.
Totally. So your mom was a dancer. What kind of dance was she studying?
I think my mom is like a free spirited lady, and she studied all different types of dance. And later on in life, she decided to do tango and learn tango, and went to Argentina for workshops. And so
Wow.
dance was always a big part of her life, even till this day it is. And yeah, it just changed a form, but I think the whole concept of dance and the energy that it gives us, it was always in her life and in my life as well.
Absolutely. I know we talked recently about you signed up at a ballroom dancing studio
Hmm.
and really like intensely went into that world and like gave it your all. Just and what I loved about you told me about this is in Ninka's recent life. You told me about this, and it was what was so cool about it was just for the sake of doing it. You know, it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to shift careers and become a ballroom dancer, or I need to hit this certain competition or anything. You were just like, I'm just doing it, you know,
Hmm.
and for me, and I just thought that was so cool, and inspiring. And I think that it gives you this freedom to like, you know, just explore and not have limits on it. And then also like when you
Hmm.
need a break from it, take a break from it. Um,
Exactly.
I thought that was so cool, and it's even cooler now to know that this it's something that your mom did, and you and your mom, you know, you've shared with me that you have had this really close relationship with your mom throughout your life.
Hmm.
So I'm excited to kind of get more into that. You mentioned that, you know, as a young person, and even to today, you've been able to like make bold choices like pretty early on. Can you give us an example of like a bold choice that you made while you were, you know, a young person, teen years, or even before?
Yeah, absolutely. And then coming back to the dance, thank you for mentioning that, because it's very true. I tend to listen to my inner voice and follow it. So at the time when I chose to take the dance classes, it was a little challenging time for me, and I was determined to find passion and joy, and that was the intent behind it. And it really was a beautiful experience. And then so everything that I do in my life, there is an intention behind it. Even behind the facial treatments and seeing my clients, there is an intent. And bold choices, I always made them. I always followed my heart. And I remember one of the bold choices was to make a decision at the age of 20 to create my life in the States. And that was my own decision, uh, because I had two different choices and options. We always have choices and different paths we can take. And I could live in Poland and be perfectly happy there, or I could be in the States and be perfectly happy here too. It's just about choosing. So I remember at the age of 20, I found myself in Los Angeles, um, determined, with the conviction within myself that this is my time now. And whatever I do from now on, it will dictate my life. And I knew I always wanted to become a woman that's proud of herself and having living with integrity and dignity. And I was 20 in Los Angeles, at a bus stop, waiting for a bus to take me to work in Santa Monica, and I was determined I'm going to make it. So that led to at the same time, I discovered my passion. Not that I discovered my passion for skincare and aesthetics, because that was always in my life, but at that time I actually made the decision to pursue school, and decided to take a student loan, and that was what I'm going to be doing. And my parents were very supportive, and whatever I chose, that's they supported me. But that's the kind of like bold choices, in a way that I'm the one who's determining my path.
Mhm.
I'm not, of course, I love my parents, and I love their guidance, but at the end of the day, I always believe that we have our own individual path, and not to be under the influence so much of people around us, because we really can feel what's the best for us.
Yeah. I love that distinction you're making about, these we have these whether we are looking for it or not, like life periodically will give us these opportunities for big changes to happen. And what I love about your perspective is you're pointing out that you can get in the driver's seat and be like, okay, I'm going to make this choice. And the thing is, like, if you don't do that and you're hoping your life just never changes or that you can like just keep things the same, other things will come in and change it for you. So it's like either you can embrace change and growth and like, just say, I'm going to be in things might not always go as exactly as I planned, but I'm gonna like whatever's happening is happening for me, not to me. I think that
Hmm.
perspective really it lends itself to confidence in so many
Yeah,
ways. I think
it's
that's such a cool point.
powerful. It's very powerful, especially for a woman, and to feel that way. And I feel, women are so beautiful, and we should be celebrating every day. We live in such a good times for us right now, where we are right now, in our lives. And yes, we have so many choices and so many decisions to make, and if we can be aligned with our heart and our values and what we stand for, and live life on our terms.
Yeah, I think that's such a beautiful point. And also to our audience, if you hear some like little cute little doggy noises, Ninka's sweet little doggy is here with us and we love her. But just in case you were wondering what those little noises were,
Yes.
we embrace it. Um, so you've mentioned, we've kind of heard in your story, there's these shifts kind of almost every decade that like at 10, suddenly, your life was changing where you were going back and forth between the States and Poland. Can you tell us a little bit about what led to that scenario and more about how that felt for you? Because we were really passionate about the teen years and
Mhm.
kind of how things that happen for us, during those
Yes.
times impact us. Can you tell us a little bit about like what started that back and forth and how you integrated it?
Yes, absolutely. The reason why my family came to the States, in the first place, was of the intention that my stepdad had, and he wanted us to experience life here. And it was very simple. And from then on, it was, everything was related to my parents' life, and their work, and their decisions. And I think they couldn't actually decide themselves, where they liked living better. So that was also one of the things, that there were people that were also trying to decide, where to settle.
Yeah. Well, and it
Yeah.
sounds like if I'm getting the math right, if they had you around 20 and then, you moved when you're about 10, like they're only 30 or so, in that period of
Yeah.
time. And you think about like, having like being in their early 30s is still a very young age, to be making decisions and figuring out, like what does the next chapter of my life look like? So to be, you know, in your like from 10 to like your early teens, also
Yeah.
along for that journey. I hear in a lot of stories, people who have parents on the younger side, um, there are challenges that come along with that, but also it creates this amazing sense of independence, whether it's intentional or not. The children of younger parents sometimes, I feel like they do some of that growing up alongside their parents in a lot of ways.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And we're always learning and evolving and changing. and our parents also. So it never stops, and they're learning as we're learning. We're just in different stages of our life, but absolutely, I think so for sure. And yeah.
So
Mhm.
you're in your teen years, you were going back and forth. I mean, when you first came here, how was like the culture change? How were your language skills at the time? What was that like to be like basically a early preteen and teenager in this like split culture environment?
Very interesting.
I
I can,
can only imagine.
I can see, from the perspective of time, it has brought a lot of blessings, but at that time where all of these changes are happening, it's quite challenging being in two different school systems, and everything, all of it. So I think that was also, a thing that helped me go within and started, I was starting to develop my own, sense of self, I think very early on in life, and asking myself these bigger questions, or developing different passions, because I knew from outside, we can't, at the time where I was so young, and we were going back and forth. I'm going along with my parents, right?
Mm,
So the only thing that I can have control over is what is happening within me at that young age,
mhm.
and the attitude that I have, and how strong I am facing different situations, and yeah, I think that's really where the character is built, in those challenging, tough moments.
Where in the States were you guys when you first touched ground here?
Well, first we lived in Florida,
How
and
long were you there?
I was there. Well, we were there on and off, but I remember my senior year in Florida, actually. Yeah, in San Augustine. Yeah, the oldest
Wow.
town in the states. So it was very beautiful, but at the same time, in the school, they really didn't have any foreigners.
Oh my,
So so I was one of the very few ones.
yeah. Well, I feel like it's pretty common in the States, at least during high school, to feel like anything that makes you different is really isolating, or that like all you want to do is kind of like maybe not fit in, but like have a role within your friend groups or be known for certain things or just like feel like a sense of just not sticking out too much. For most young women, that it's just like there's already so many internal changes going on as we hit puberty and stuff and in high school, and then like the boys and stuff, things are just the dynamics are changing socially around us. But then to also be like, okay, I'm, the only person from another country here, just must have been a lot. And it's like, it's today you have such a center, you are very able to like identify. I feel like you're able to identify your strengths and, um, where you draw your, when you're down or whatever, like you have a internal like well that you're able to
Hmm.
access. Was
Hmm.
there any, I mean, were there any points in your childhood or your teen years where you felt a little lost or, um, just or isolated or different or anything like that? Or just, obstacles, I guess.
Of course, I think we're all a little lost when we're
Yeah.
young.
Sometimes,
you
honestly,
know,
this morning I felt a little lost.
it
Like, let's be
happens
real.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, it happens to us all the time. And, life has many twists and turns. And actually, one of my favorite turn is called the U-turn. So it's the turn back to yourself,
Yeah.
and say hello, like I'm here, and
Yeah.
all is well.
Yes. Like, let's
And
check in.
yeah, yeah. So I think, growing up, of course, there was that conflict because I didn't quite fit in with I'm not from the States, right? That's clearly seen. And then when I'm in Poland, I'm not really like, I'm not quite as Polish as people who
Yeah.
have been living there all their lives. So there
Yeah.
has been that conflict, right? Like, where is that sweet spot for me? And I think that's like one of the most beautiful conflicts to have, because now, I don't want to fit in. I
Well,
think we're so, it's so good to be in the skin that we are, but growing
totally.
up, that's a little tough, right? Because we're all trying to just figure things out.
I think it's actually like instinctual if you think about like our primal needs, when we're young, especially before we're able to be completely independent or living on our own, it's very important that we stay a part of a tribe or we have a family or a pack that's like taking care of us. So I think that during those years where we're not quite flying by ourselves, but we're growing and we're seeking and we're conscious of like where are we going to fit, um, you know, that feeling of like, wait, I don't quite fit in with these American kids, but also like back in Poland, I'm not quite there all the time. So I don't really feel like I fit in here. That can create a lot of like tension and anxiety. But then you look at it later and it's like, wow, what a blessing that I have had this lens on two different things at the same time. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like I, that strikes a chord with me just being multicultural. Like my mom is from India and my dad is an Irish guy from the US. And growing up, I grew up in like a very small town and I always kind of felt like, okay, I'm not really fully in either culture. But I was like, I want to feel like this is a cool thing because I get like all these different holidays and cultural things and stuff. But I remember kind of just being uncomfortable with it when I was younger in certain moments because I was like, I just don't feel like I know exactly where I fit because like there's this tension to feel like you fit in one place. And
Mm-hmm.
now as an adult, I'm like, wow, what a gift. Like I feel like I'm now a person that's able to see a lot of different perspectives and not have to reconcile them, and just be
Mm-hmm.
like, that's beautiful. The fact that different perspectives on the same thing can exist. And I think
Yes.
that even that experience of living in two different places and maybe not feeling quite at home in either for a
Mm-hmm.
period of time, especially a developmental period of time, must have impacted your perspective today, even. Would you say that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it impacts me, on a daily life, and the choices that I make, or how I look at things, and yeah, it can be, different. But I understood that just because it's different, there is no meaning to it. We
Yeah.
don't have to live in a box with a certain meaning to it. And I just wish that, for younger girls, to just embrace, who they are, and embrace all of the stages, because life is such a journey,
Yeah.
and it's a journey to ourselves within, really. And then being surrounded and created, the life that we really want outside.
I love that. When you were a teenager and going to two different schools, how was like the school environment for you? Were you naturally academic? Were you really social? Were there sports or extracurriculars? What was like your high school life like in both places?
I always loved art. I was always on a more creative side. So I loved music. I was playing violin in high school, which I loved, but I didn't love it so much that I would want to continue it. But that was a great experience. And then I was dancing when I was in high school as well. I was in this dance company that then we danced all different types of modern dances and performed at the assemblies and stuff like that. And that
Cool.
was fun. And I would take art classes, and I enjoyed English too, and writing. I love to write. And then I had Sunday school too, which was the Polish school. And then then I was learning about the Polish history and writing and all of that. So I I was very creative and artsy. I was not a very sporty type, although I did play tennis in high school, but more so I lean towards, just creative classes and different activities.
I love that. And it's so cool that your mom probably loved that you were dancing too and had that in
Yeah.
common with her at that time. Now, what you do now is skin, and so much it's like, yes, skin is an aesthetic thing, but really our faces are our first touch point with other people. And I've had the experience of having my skin feel like it's glowing and great and everyone's giving me compliments. I've also had the experience of feeling like, my skin is so broken out that even like I don't want to put makeup on it because that clogs it up, but then I feel like I can't go outside because I don't have makeup on, that it can really make you, I've had that experience where I'm like checking out at a grocery store. I'm like, she's staring at my zits, and your skin, like when it's not healthy, can just, it can really be hard to feel that sense of confidence. Have you always
Yeah.
felt at home in your skin when you were like a teenager and beyond? Because you're
I
obviously a
wish.
very beautiful person.
Thank
So
you,
someone might have,
Asha.
I mean, especially if you're watching the video, Ninka's very beautiful. She has great
Oh,
skin.
thank you.
Um,
You're
but
so
I
sweet.
like to hear that perspective,
Yeah. Well,
on the
you
inside.
know, I didn't have perfect skin growing up, and that was something that um, I heard this one speech by Steve Jobs, and he said that you can only connect the dots of your life going backwards. So when I was reflecting on my life, and I like to do that, a lot to reassess things. And when I was connecting the dots going back, I saw my younger self, a teen who had really major skin issues and cystic acne, and growing up with that, of course that has an impact on how we feel. And I remember, my mom, uh, and her being Polish, in Poland, having an esthetician is just like having a dentist. You just have one, and you just go to one.
Yeah.
You make things. I don't know what you have to manage, but you have to go to your esthetician. Like that's the type of attitude that Polish ladies have. We just so when I had my skin issues growing up, and that was a cystic acne, and I was struggling with it, one of the things that my mom did for me at the beginning is just to take me to her esthetician. And I always had, beautiful people that would help me with my skin, and that was um, that was healed eventually. But yes, of course, I had my share of skin challenges, and now I see how that led one thing to another, and me becoming an esthetician. And now when I look back, and if I think if I could make any other decision, when it comes to my work, and when it comes to what I do, I wouldn't change a thing.
I
So
love that.
it's yeah.
One of the things that, when we have worked with different groups of girls in person and coaching and workshops, and different things that we've realized just kind of as our own proprietary research, I guess, is that usually when girls, we do polls and ask them like, what are some careers that um, are interesting to you? Almost always the careers that people will list are those of people that substantially impacted them in a positive way at some point in their lives. One of my favorite examples was we worked with this group of teen moms, and almost every teen mom, when we asked them about careers they would be interested in, put neonatal nurse. And that to me was like, that's because they had a trusting, intimate interaction with a woman that helped them, and they felt the positive benefit of that, and then suddenly that career path became interesting to them. So I love your story because you had that moment where your mom took you to an esthetician during a time
Mm-hmm.
that you were struggling with something, and whether
Yes,
you realized it or not, suddenly that pathway was like, oh, like maybe I could help someone like that or be this
absolutely.
influential to somebody's life. And that's really like what we're trying to do here is like, whether people get to meet you in person or they just, watch this interview on YouTube or Spotify or wherever they listen, um, they might feel that impact and connection with you. And suddenly, maybe a career as an esthetician um,
Mhm.
is an option or interesting to them. I love,
Yes,
I love that point.
it's it's I think it was a beautiful experience for me too, and how fortunate that I was that my mom took me to an esthetician at that. I was very young too when I
Yeah.
started to have my little blackheads and skin issues. I was just probably 10 or 9, and she took me for a little facial, and yeah, it was. I always loved being in these beautiful places with these beautiful ladies who had their mission, to help other people with their skin. And they had these magical tools, and they had their masks, and different high frequency, that kills bacteria, and all of their skin treatments that were helping women feel good about their skin that they're in. And I think that's my wish for everyone, is to feel just good.
You definitely accomplished that. I remember the first couple facials I had with you. Yeah, it was during that time when my skin was just like going kind of crazy. And looking back, I'm like, well, yeah, that was like literally right before I was diagnosed with my cancer. So my hormones, a lot of the time, especially for young women, as women in general, our bodies go through big hormonal shifts. And sometimes accompanying those hormonal shifts, the hormones create acne.
Hmm.
And I remember specifically, I think it was like right before I was going on a trip where my husband actually ended up proposing. But right before that trip, I had this horrible zit like by my mouth, to the extent that like I literally skipped. I was in my MBA program at the time, and I skipped class because I was like, I cannot go. Like this is too distracting. I skipped school because of it, and this was in my
Hmm.
20s. And I called Ninka and I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be going on this trip and I just don't know what to do. And she's like, come right in. And she treated it and drained it and took care of me.
Yes.
But she just has a way of like making you feel so calm and seen that literally when my mom comes to town, I told my mom, I was like, this is the best facial I've ever had. You have to go and experience Ninka. And she got to have that treat too.
Oh.
You're
Yes, your
very skilled at
lovely
what you do.
mom.
I know we've had a lot of conversations about just how much we adore our moms,
Hmm.
and I think that's such a gift for both of our lives.
Yeah. Thank
Um,
you for saying that,
of
Asha.
course,
Thank you for your kind words, and yeah, I think I have a lot of faith in my life. A lot of faith in God, and our purpose, and I know for me that's definitely one of them. So
I love that.
yeah.
So I have a couple points that you mentioned that I'm curious about. Number one, so you said you had a brother that is 10 years younger than you,
Hmm.
and you moved to the States, or you started that back and forth around 10. So was your mom also pregnant during that time when you guys started going back and forth? I'm
Yes.
like, wait a minute.
Yes, it was
That's
a lot
wild.
going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, he was, my little brother. I call him little, but he's like over 6 feet,
Yeah.
and he's this big man now. But my little brother, he was born in Florida, and then his life was also a little bit divided like mine. And then later on, he decided to actually move back to Poland, and he's there
Oh,
now.
oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
he
That's so
loves
interesting for
it.
you guys to kind of, make different decisions like that. Um,
Hmm.
and to be confident in it. Were you guys, I mean, 10 years is a big age gap, but what is your relationship like now, and how has that changed since he was, younger and you were younger?
I have such a good relationship with him, and I love him so much. We talk on a regular basis and catch up with things, and he's 10 years younger. However, he holds so much wisdom. I think he was always this old soul, and I remember him just absorbing books when he was little. He would just like read these like big books, and he would just take all of that knowledge, and he had this curiosity, to also ask deeper questions, about life, and he's very wise. So we have a lot of good conversations. When we connect, we talk, a lot about just life, little things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of nice too, you've mentioned that you're passionate about your culture and your background. You're proud of being Polish and to be able to have, ties still in Poland. And your mom lives there but comes and visits frequently,
No,
right?
she's actually here.
No,
She
she's
lives
here
in
now.
LA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But then you guys have gone there together or something, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you've
Yes.
taken trips to Poland together. But to
Yeah.
have your brother there and um, to be able to kind of access Poland in a continuous way by having family there still is really cool.
I love it. I love it. I'm going there at the end of this month, and most of my family is still there. I just have my mom here, so
Mm,
everyone else is there. And there is something in the air for me when I go there. I land and I can just feel that energy of that country, and I think it's a combination of that history and just all of it. I'm there, and then I'm there, and I come back here, and this is my second home, so it's always like that.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
so cool to be able to have a source like that where you can kind of go and tap in and then come back and you're re-energized, and people can feel that. You also mentioned, so when you were about 20, when you decided to move or to stay in the States full time, that you were in LA at the time. So
Hmm.
when did you, you were in Florida for some time. Where did you
Hmm.
go from there?
So from Florida, we moved to Illinois, and we lived outside of Chicago,
Okay.
in the north side of Chicago. So very different
So
climates too,
different.
right?
Oh my gosh. Like to go to the Chicago wind from
Oh
Florida.
yeah.
Oh
And
my
the
gosh.
winter time in Chicago,
Yes.
I'm like trying to always escape the winter.
Yeah. And why
Yeah.
did you guys make that move? What
It
brought you
was,
there?
based of my family's, my parents' choices, and that's what they wanted to pursue. And yeah, that's what we did. And I actually graduated from high school there, and yeah, I had a very good experience living there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you went from Chicago where?
From
Been a lot of
Chicago
places.
to right.
You're so casual about it too. You're like, oh yeah, well I started my senior year in Florida, but I graduated in Chicago, and I'm like, oh my gosh, do a lot of high schoolers be? I'm thinking about like people that have to move a lot because of the military families and stuff, where they're like, yeah, it was so hard, but you're like, I really had a great experience there. You're so positive. I love it.
I mean, and it's so, it's, yeah, I mean, it's what we make out of it,
Mhm.
because I mean, that at the end of the day, that's what it is about. And, not only that, I, I don't know how I did it, but I ended up, skipping, junior year and went straight to my senior year, and I graduated at 17. And
Wow.
and then I ended up being in California, right? And I was yeah, life just takes you places. And yeah, but I was 20 years old, and I decided for myself that, I want to build my life here. And that's,
And you
that's how
did.
it all began. Yeah.
So you also, your program, your esthetician program, um, in your bio, it mentioned it was from Virginia. Did you go
Mhm.
to Virginia for that school, or was it like a mobile thing?
So I started my schooling in LA,
Uh-huh.
and then I got into a relationship with someone who lived on that side of the states, and I ended up moving. But still, although I moved, I wanted to continue my education and pursue, aesthetics, and that's when I found this wonderful school that offers masters in aesthetics and also laser education too, because they have different laws. So I did that, and I worked in a very beautiful dermatology practice in Chevy Chase, in Maryland. So that was how it all led me there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you came back here. This is so
Hmm.
cool. You've literally probably lived in more US states than like most uh, born citizens here. You've been
Yeah.
all in different climates and different places. Um, I love that. And you found your way. You're in obviously in Newport Beach now, and I feel like locally you are like I refer people to you, but I'm also like kind of a gatekeeper. I'm sorry, like now the word's out. Like Ninka is my favorite skincare person ever, but I have faith that she will keep time for me in her busy schedule. Because people once they find her, they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, she's the very
Oh,
best.
always,
Um,
always, always.
yeah. Well, this has been so fun to talk about your path really all over the world, but
Mhm.
really within. It seems like you have made that U-turn so many points in your life, and you've been able to kind of check in and integrate the new information, the new places that you're in, and, take steps forward and see what life brings you next in a really like
Mhm.
peaceful way. So,
Mhm.
we usually, towards the end of our interviews, we like to do a little like fast five questions. You can say whatever comes to mind, but you don't have to answer in short answers if you don't want. But does that sound good? Can we jump into those?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, perfect. Number one, what is your favorite product or treatment for skin right now?
Okay. Well, it has to be retinol. I love retinols. And all of my clients are on the retinol, except if they're, pregnant or breastfeeding. But I myself love retinol products, and yeah, always use it.
For a lay person, what does retinol like do for your skin? Like, what is the process that happens when you start using a retinol?
So retinol is a vitamin A, and we naturally have vitamin A in our skin, but it gets depleted. And to energize our cells, our skin cells, we need to give them proper ingredients and nutrients. And vitamin A in the form of retinol or retinoids, which are those are prescription, and retinol is over the counter. It really normalizes the function of our cells. So it gives our us beautiful fresh complexion, and that's what's keeping our skin youthful.
I love that. I know I finally, after stopping nursing, I was able to like start one again. I've already started to feel kind of the difference. So good.
Hmm.
For number two, do you have a morning routine? And if so, what is it?
Yes, but are we speaking of a skincare routine
And
or just
just
like
like
a
for what
daily
you do.
routine?
Yes. What your mindset, physically, what you do, all of it.
Yeah,
And your skincare routine while we're at it. Let's hear it.
okay. Well, I'm all about having a routine. I love
Yeah.
my routine. So, one of the first things that I like to do every day, is having a nice cup of coffee, with my favorite milk and however I like to have it. and then I go to my bathroom and apply under eye patches from my under eyes. And that's usually how I start my day, and with also with music, I try to start my days peacefully as they can be. So I have my candle going, I have a little incense going, I have my journal music, and that's how I typically start my day. And with
Right.
skincare too, many steps.
Many steps. Okay, if you could do it, but you don't have to say the products. Maybe I'll source them from you and put them in the show notes if I can do that. But like, what are the or what's the order of the products you're using in the morning and the night? I'm expanding
Okay,
on our
so
fast five just for
you
the
know
sake of our audience.
yeah, so I use different products and I like to explore, but I always go back to Zeo Skin Health. Those are,
Uh-huh.
the products that I work with, and I have my cleanser from them, an exfoliator, a polish, pads. So this is something that I do every day, and I encourage my clients to do the same, just to
Just in the
cleanse,
morning or
exfoliate.
morning and night?
Morning and night,
Okay.
but in the morning, definitely, cleanse, exfoliate, tone the skin, and then we have all of our serums. And yeah, for daytime, I love to use vitamin C.
I love it for the
That's,
glow.
yeah, for the
And then
glow.
like
And
a cream or like a sunscreen after that?
so usually it depends, what kind of products are we using, but the vitamin C that I currently use, it goes right before sunblock.
Okay.
So first everything, hydrating, and then the vitamin C, just to protect our skin from free radicals and environment, and the glowing effect it
Love it.
gives. Yeah.
Okay, and then for nighttime, you're cleansing again. What do you do right before bed?
Cleansing. Zeo Skin Health has these amazing pads with different acids in them. So I use one of these pads morning and night. And usually I would go for a retinol, or the other product that I love, it's called the Growth Factor Serum.
I've been using that and I love it. I feel like
You
I've
lo-
had it for about
isn't
like
it?
2 months now, and it's so nice. It's like this really nice little. I put it on top of like my whatever I'm using, because sort of like I do like the retinol, a little moisturizer, and then that on the top, and
Hmm.
it's nice.
That's the way to do it.
Hot tip from Ninka. All right, we shared it all. I'm going to put a link to the Zeo Skin Health products in our bio if you're interested in those specifically. Number three, what is something people often misunderstand about a career as an esthetician?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I'm not sure. I'm not sure because I don't feel like I have ever been misunderstood,
Mm,
when it comes to aesthetics,
I love
and
that.
and being an esthetician. Yeah.
It's probably because you're a great communicator, you know?
Oh, thank
Also,
you.
like mic drop answer. I love it. Okay, we'll take it. Number four, who is a person that has impacted you forever?
Oh my. So many people. In different seasons, we have people that come into our lives and they impact us in ways that we would never expect them to. So it all depends on, of that season in life. But it wouldn't be fair just to choose one person.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I love that. Number five, what is the most important communication skill that you use on a regular basis?
Mm. Okay. Well, I understood that there is a difference between communication and comprehension.
Mm,
And that's a big one, and so it's important that I think when we communicate, to make sure that the other person um, comprehends well what we are trying to convey.
I love that
And
answer.
yeah, it's not so much about just communication, because everyone says communication is the key, and that's That's what it is. But I disagree. It's actually, the way we comprehend things.
Well, and I think that a lot of times we hear communication, we think about like how are we speaking to other people? And really it's like, well, real communication is I mean, maybe more than half of communication is taking things in, listening, clarifying, and like comprehension. It's like often, if you're unsure if you're comprehending what someone's information people are giving to you, whatever, you have to clarify and confirm, or someone says something to you, you repeat it back and say, like, what I'm hearing from you is this. Is that
Mm-hmm.
correct? Did I get that
Mm-hmm.
right? And making sure that you are fully understanding someone just like you know, they are understanding you and you're getting your point
Mm-hmm.
across.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
so well said, Asha. I think that's such a big thing. It's a huge thing, actually. Because we can misunderstand a lot of things, and why would we? We have the power and the choice, to clarify things and to actually make sure, that we have a common understanding. Yeah.
That must be so important in your job too, to really, someone might come to you and tell you one reason why, they want help with a certain issue or whatever. And sometimes I'm sure you have to kind of uncover what's going on a deeper level. Is it a product you're using, or is it like the stress on a daily basis? Do you need a little more water in your life? Like being able to really
Yeah.
understand what's going on with someone and have them walk out of a facial with you, feeling that clarification, physically in their skin, but also, in their communication and their trust with you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes,
good.
and I think building that relationship, with people, and in my case, with my clients at work, because I only want the best for them, and I have to ask certain questions and be like a little detective, what they're using at home, if they're having too much, I don't know, ice cream or some dairy, right? That's showing up on the skin, and actually consider their lifestyle too, because not everyone wants to have 6-step routine. Some
Yeah.
people would like to just have 2 or 3, and that's okay. So I think there's everyone is different, and to
Yeah.
have that like well-rounded approach
Yeah. Be
for
able to like
them.
meet people where they're at. Like,
Hmm.
or you'll have people like me where I'm like, I like all the products and I want to know all the ingredients and why they work and what they're doing. And you're like, okay.
I love
Asha has a lot of
it.
questions. But I remember like you told me to give an example of kind of that feedback system and your ability to be that little detective. I've been coming in to see you for a long time. And at one point, I think it was that like Ilia foundation with the oil. It's like the oil foundation that everybody was using and I got Instagram targeted for or whatever. And I was loving the look of it, but you were able to say like, are you using something different? And we like hammered it down to figure out like, oh, okay, the thing that has been different is this foundation. You're like, oh, the oil base is giving you milia in your skin. So it's
Hmm.
probably not it's a cool product for some people, but it's maybe not
Hmm.
the right product for you. And that was so helpful. We were able to figure it out by communicating and having her ask the questions of like, what has changed?
Hmm.
And I feel like that skill can really apply to, obviously skincare is like one little area of our lives, but being able to problem solve with anyone you're partnering with in any setting by having that kind of real curious mentality um,
Hmm.
is such a
Yeah,
strength.
exactly. And it's just curiosity, it's just kind of observation and just being curious. Because when I see my clients on a regular basis, I can definitely tell, when things have been changing, and that's okay. Things change all the time. And as women, we're constantly under the cycle of our hormones, one way or the other, throughout our entire life. So change it's tough, but it's normal, and it's just a way of life. So when I look at the skin and I can see that it's been changing, then it's I'm always curious and with the right intention, just to make sure that you know like you're happy with your skin, right?
Totally. Well, for our final question, we always ask the same thing. What was one quality that you had as a young woman that maybe you didn't appreciate then, but you're so proud of now?
Hmm. I think just having that multicultural experience growing up, I think I wasn't embracing that when I was younger. And as I grew older, I realized that that's a gift, and that's something to embrace and cherish and be thankful for, and feel lucky about it too.
I love that. Thank you so much, Ninka. This has been such a treat. I love spending time with you in any setting, but I've been so looking forward to sharing your story and your personality with our audience. So thank you for your
Oh,
time and your story. And I will see you again really soon.
oh, Asha, I can't wait to see you. And it was so nice catching up with you like that, in such a different setting than we usually see each other
Yeah.
at. But to be at home and have a little coffee with you and chat about, all of the things that we love, because that's something I admire about you too, is the empowerment that you bring and your kindness, and yeah, it's really an honor. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Ninka. Well, we will link where you work at CO Skin Center. If you want to book with Ninka, just don't take my slot.
No,
But we'll
don't
put any
take
other
Asha's
relevant
spot.
links. But thank you. This was such a treat, and I can't wait for our audience to be inspired by you. So we'll talk
Oh,
soon.
talk soon, Asha. Thank you so much for everything.
And that's our show. If you liked what you heard today, please like, subscribe to, follow, and share Meet Bridget with your circle. The best way to help our work here is to rate and review our podcast. We're listening and constantly working to build something helpful for you. Catch you next time.